Hello everyone, welcome back to another MLC video. I know MLC's over now, and I need to post my other games. They're coming if you want to watch them. But today I wanted to talk about something I wanted to share for a while now because MLC is over. I can show it. It is the secret tactics and preparations of an cEDH AI for MLC. That's the video title. Definitely didn't make it up just now. Okay, let's see. So I think preparation's like very important for tournament play. I think deck choice and pilot skills like very important obviously, but I think preparation and being in the right mindset and preparing yourself for these games is also just like I don't know 50% of the game. I think that's how highly I rank it. And MLC is very interesting in its setup, which is different from any other tournament so far. So there's a lot of other things you can do for preparation, and let's kind of see all the things that I did to prep for MLC because I think that's what led to a lot of the success I saw in MLC. So let's see the first thing. So the first thing I wanted to show everyone is this sheet I had that was like a schedule planning sheet. As soon as the all the games and all the players were announced, the first thing I did was create this sheet. So what's interesting about MLC is you pick a deck each week, right? And you know who you're playing, and also after week 2, you know exactly what the pod order is. So another interesting thing is you can only play a deck up to 3 times. So it's very important that you keep track of how many times you play a deck and when you play a deck. I think some people will just kind of like, I'll play this because I feel like it, but because I randomed all 4 of my lists strategically for strategic reasons, definitely not memes. That my choices I think had to be more. It was very important to make sure that I picked the right deck for it because I have 4 decks and they're not quite as efficient, I think, compared to some of the other lists that doing a very specific thing, and they're all kind of like mixtures of slight stacks, mid range, maybe being able to like be a little proactive or like doing some sort of disruption. So I think it's the types of pods they succeed in is very narrow. So that's why planning like this is very important. But over here, you can see that I have the home game players, so we know for a fact who's gonna start the game. Then we know the turn order, and then we also over here I keep track of what decks they have, and then afterwards it's a fun game of figuring out what they want to pick. So turn order actually decides a lot of this, and also trying to recognize or play the game of seeing if they really respect the home game player. I think the home game player really dictates a lot of these pods. So, for example, this is the very first week. We have Charles playing the home game, and there's 4 decks over here. Without really diving too deep into Charles's whole league, I think it's like equally likely that he can play any of these lists. I think maybe some people want to play a new list for week 1 because everyone's new, or they want to capitalize on that first week and kind of take a win. But for Charles, I think playing his Heliod Ballista is just as equal as everything else. Knowing that Charles is first means that I have to play Kodama Sakashima. Kodama Sakashima is very good at specifically against stacks. So this is a very important pod for me to do well for Kodama Sakashima. For Kai, I did not think that he would play Timna Crom Breach and also Tassiger Turbo Nas on 3rd seat with Charles playing on the first, going first. So most likely he's gonna play these 2 lists, which would be great if he plays the Abs and Kodama stacks, because then Kodama would just kind of go through both of them. Now, the most interesting thing was when Brayden was in this pod. I did not expect him to play Food Chain Corvold. I would expect him to play this in a pod that might be a little more difficult, or maybe another pod, not for the very first one. And everything else I felt was like equally likely. He ultimately picked Coin Bros, Okan Zinder split, and after I talked with him, he was like, "Oh, I just wanted to play that list. I don't really think about it that much." Yeah, so I think being able to like see these lists and kind of plan like that was very, very important. Another really interesting thing about planning for this league is that I know the entire league. I know kind of like the I don't want to say difficulty, but there's going to be certain periods in my league where I think I'm gonna do a little bit better than other ones. So for example, I'm just gonna jump around over here. Here's Pontus. Also, another interesting thing I keep track of is how well, like maybe weaknesses to certain types of lists, and also keeping track of what type. So knowing that Sick Robot, kind of like 4 lists that are kind of fast. One of them being semi-weak to Croxa because Croxa is like a Pyroclasm list, so a Dork deck is very weak against it, and I consider Lurker's list to be also weak against Croxa over here. Pontus having Storm list. But the interesting thing is, let's see. This, I think, is a very difficult pod over here with Pongo going first, playing either one of his fast lists, Timnatana Snoot or Icrom, and I can't do anything about that. In this pod, if Pongo picks Icrom, Lurker picks like a Jaleva Storm, and then Devante plays like, I don't know, any of his lists, like the likelihood of me being able to win in this one is kind of low. So then it's a game of like, do I want to pick a stronger list to try and fight him, or do I want to pick a list that might not be as like, reserve this list for something else and try something else, like reserve my good lists, or like I guess my proactive lists against certain pods, and like kind of try something else that's different for these games. And we also know how this game went. It was pretty close. Croxa is also very much stronger than we give it credit for, but as you can see, kind of every single week was plotted out, and it kind of worked exactly the way I planned it to overall. So I reviewed this entire series. Oh, later in the league, I started keeping track of their win rates and how many times they were used to help inform some of those decisions. So, like for example, in this especially critical game, I kind of figured that it was going to be Jorah Storm just because Hal's on the play, but then knowing Sage has 2 losses here, Bergie is 1-1, and you can't play Omnath Breach here, and Orvar is 0-1. I figured that they were going to play Bergie with 1 game left in the season. I believe they go last on that game as well. So a lot of really interesting things to keep track of, and then it kind of played out the way I expected it would play out. So I scoped out that my initial first half of the league, I think it was like, I would say, equal chances of being able to win, with the middle being the hardest part. I really I guess respect Pongo skill and also Lurker skill in everyone, but I think playing against Pongo, I don't know if it's bias or something like that, but I don't think I do as well against Pongo. So I think it was this game over here, and then I have another Pongo game going 2 over here with Lurker again. I just figured, I just kind of scoped these games to be like kind of difficult to win with my list. So knowing that I kind of have like a rough period, and then I scoped the ending to be a lot more easier because, again, I have Sakashima Kodama, my very, very last game. I'm on the play. Nope, not this one. I'm on the play with Charles in that pod, Kai on that pod, and presumably Brayden back then, but then Killstars took over that spot. So there was originally this was scoped to be a Kodama Sakashima game, but I picked Croxa because I'll explain that in a little bit. But knowing the kind of like the pace of the league also gives me emphasis on the games that I really have to win, knowing that there are other games that's harder to win and other games that's easier to win. So that first game with Kodama Sakashima was absolutely critical that I had to win, because there's very few games that I'm like extremely favored in, and that was one of them. Unfortunately, we kind of messed up, but that's the nature of playing these random decks. You learn new things and learn these intricacies. What was I gonna say over here? Oh yes, Croxa. So why did I pick Croxa in this final game? Well, also it's interesting to think about your opponent's experience with your decks. So I played against Kai, I think 3 times at this point. This would be the 4th time I play against Kai, and Kai has played against both Taya midrange, Kodama Sakashima. He hasn't played against Hulk, I believe, but the Croxa list is the only list he hasn't seen yet, and Charles, I think, is similar. He has not seen Croxa as often. He knows of my other list very well. So this game was also kind of nail-biting because at this point I was fighting for first place with Ian, and we both were tied on wins, and I was working really hard to win this game, but we didn't win it, and Ian tied his game. So at this point, if I win this game, I had a pathway to take the first place bye, and if Ian did not win his game, then I would take it. So I picked Croxa because just I felt like going first with Croxa is okay, but also knowing my opponent's familiarity of my decks, I wanted to pick something that they were less familiar with. Also at this point, I was just kind of like, you know what, let's just see what happens. If I lose, I lose. If I win, I win. Kind of like that. So yeah, I think this was very critical, just planning out the league like this, kind of reading the pod, reading what your opponents generally have, and then trying to formulate a game plan was very, very important, and also just like very useful, especially when you have limited usages of your deck. Yes. So then after all this planning for the entire league, what decks I'll be playing, what pod composition I expect it to work like, then comes the actual preparation for the game itself. So every single week, I have one day where I practice the actual deck against other players in my LGS. And I also goldfish the days before that, so let's kind of plan out the entire week. So in the beginning of the week, I goldfish, learn the lines, learn some of the patterns, learn some of the synergies. Then on the middle of the week, I will then play the deck to actually play it against like players, to kind of see those kind of goldfish like learnings in action. And also just like kind of understand the tempo of the deck a little bit. Sometimes it's very hard to see, certain how the deck plays without actually playing it. So that session is there just to learn the deck better. I think that was something key that I didn't do in the first week. I did not practice Sakashima Kodama. I only mulliganed it. I only goldfished it. And whenever I goldfish, I always goldfish all the way to the win and try and step through everything. So I was very prepared to play it, but just missed a couple little things, which I think if I practiced in person or online, that would have solved that. Yeah. So then after early week goldfishing, midweek practicing, then Friday comes and I don't do anything. So that's very key to me. Friday I always leave kind of empty to stay relaxed. I think it works out really well for me when I don't try and spend all my time practicing. I think having a little break just kind of helps clear your mind on game day. Then on game day, what I do is I also research my opponent's list, and then what I do is I write down all their interactions, all the things I need to be lookout for on sticky notes, and I put the sticky notes on the side so I can reference them. But also I usually don't reference them anymore after writing them. The act is just kind of like to write it down so I remember what to watch out for, and that's very, very helpful. There's certain pieces of tech that players play, and you might not expect it, and just doing that exercise is very important. I learned that from Sinestra and his team with Twice and Don Khan, and I forgot one person. Sorry. For the Nexus event, who is it? Is it Ondis? I think it's Ondis. This is gonna bother me now. Or was it Kazu? No, it's not. Anyways, it doesn't matter. They would write a Google Doc. They would look through their opponent's list, write down all the things to watch out for, write down their interaction, write down how they win. I think that kind of preparation really helps so that you don't get caught off guard. Yeah, I think that's just like very important to know. Yes. Also preparing for game day, because we know our pod compositions. So let me just bring up the sheet. Where is the sheet? Here is the sheet. Let me pick a good week for this. There's one week. This week is very important. Okay, so because we know our compositions and we also know who our opponents and what their decks will be playing when they're announced, we formulate a game plan. I think that's also very important. This is a very good game of demonstrating of strategic, like strategizing a game plan, a really good game plan for how you want the game to play out and how you want to play into that game. So there are oftentimes, I think, when you see the games I play, it might seem like, I don't know, there's luck or whatever, that certain things are played out the way they are, but most of them I actually planned it with people. So for example, this game is particularly difficult, and I'm very excited to show you later. This is an excellent game where Hal is playing Joy Storm first. Timmy, I really thought he would play Kinnan, but he actually picks Marwyn Elfball here, which makes sense, and I'll explain why. Sage is playing Bergie here, which I expected, and me, I was playing Taya mid-range going last. Kodama Sakashima is never able to race all three of these decks meaningfully. We know Joyra is going to be the fastest. Marwyn is also very fast, and so is Bergie, so there's no way I can play this list. Kroxa doesn't really do anything effective here. I might be able to play a Null Rod, I might be able to like attack players' hands, but that's also just kind of difficult, I think. I might be able to get a really good hand turn 1 and win somehow, or turn 2, but that's very risky. And don't forget, this particular game I had to win, or else everything relies on the last game to take the first place. So when we're talking about game plans, I would chat with Rylan, Zero, the Tayum server especially, and also other players specifically on how we need to pursue this pod. We know that Joyra is gonna be playing artifacts and storming off and drawing cards. We know Marwyn needs to kind of play dorks, activate Marwyn, and kind of go that way. So you would imagine a Linvala would be good here, but I'll talk about that in a bit. Bergie storms off of Bergie play spells, but the kind of the main line that we know that affects all these players is actually card draw. If we play Spirit of the Labyrinth, I think, is it that one? Whatever, I think it's Spirit of the Labyrinth. The one that stops their draws or limits their draws, that gives Tayum one piece of stacks that's able to affect all three of them and disrupt them. And ideally that disrupts them long enough for them to interact with each other, which is still unlikely. I think Jorah might. Timmy might be able to like kind of nuke a breach or nuke a breach this way, and Sage might have a red blast, but we can't trust that. I think all three lists here are trying to go proactive, so playing a stacks piece over here is really trying to draw the game out a little bit. But the main plan here is to play enough stacks pieces where then Tayum can start taking control of the game. And don't forget, we're playing last. We're playing last as a stacks deck, so the first mulligan is extremely important. We know that we want Spirit of the Labyrinth, but what's the next stacks piece we need? We also need another piece of stacks just to make sure that it's extremely difficult from the breakout. And at this point, I think Collector Oof would be good. Oof might make it hard for Sage and Hal, and also Timmy, Marwyn, kind of one of the lines needs Umbral Mantle or Staff of Domination, so Collector Oof might be good here, but also something that came up in the game is Aura of Silence, another really good option for that. So you can see here that the game plan is very clear. We mull for turn 1 stacks that stops Joyra. We know these two aren't likely to get it. Then that hand also has to have a second stacks piece that we can play, and ideally we can like find another stacks piece with our tutor, then lock out the table, then we play Tayum. Then it'll be extremely difficult for this pod to break out of that lock, because Tayum can recur a lot of the things. If we can get a value, like a value engine like Mana Gordra Hydra that we demonstrated game earlier, that would just be amazing. So if you watch the game, and the game's not live yet, I need to do it yet, but when you do watch the game, you can see that the game played out exactly as we planned with the Tayum players, and I think that's extremely important. Just knowing what the pod is, what you need to do, and trying to mull for it, or trying to be mindful of what you need to do. We ultimately lost this game, and I'll get into more what a different decision could have been made in that game. But that's also another important piece of preparation for these games, preparing for the pod and kind of having a good like overall strategy for the pod. So let's talk about the semifinals. This is the next level of preparation. Just for context, I was extremely stressed out at this point because Ian did a great job taking that last win, putting me back down to second place, and it was just a little disheartening for me. But you know, that's how it goes. That's a tournament, and he won it, so that's what happens. But knowing that this semifinals, I'm extra like pressured, and I really want to win this game. Additional levels of preparation was considered for this pod. So just like the other games, the first week all goldfishing. I goldfished. I know how to play the Hulk deck. I also kind of did a good job, like, you know, calling out what they would play. Like, Pongo was going to be Icrom Kenrith. I expected Kenrith, to be honest. We know Charles playing Helios Ballista. There's no way he's not playing it. Shani, I really expected him to play Thras Vile Hermit Druid or Curious Control, but he did say in chat that he was going to meme with Teamer Malcolm, and he did it. But also, I don't think it's a meme. This was like one of my most feared decks in the whole pod. This order is also wrong, so we afterwards kind of like this kind of changes things. But afterwards, the game plan changed midway. But same thing. I would Goldfish day 1, day 2, learn a bunch of lines, learn a bunch of synergies. I actually did learn new things. I have played this list a lot in my LGS. Just a week before and like other weeks before, I played this list. So I don't feel I'm as unfamiliar versus like Tayum or Kroxa or Sakashima Kodama. They all play very uniquely, but this one kind of makes sense. It's very layered, very easy to like kind of combo off. So in the beginning of the week is just mulliganing, goldfishing. Then midweek, instead of playing my usual just go to the LGS and play, we have a very unique advantage here. So we know that Helios Ballista is often played by Michael Levine. Icrom here is designed by Ondis, and also then Hulk over here is designed by Twice. So I have access to the players who actually kind of really push forward these archetypes. So for my special training, what I did was I played Teamer Malcolm because I know this list the least. I know these other lists pretty well. I especially know Icrom, just because of the turbo list, and I've played against it a lot. Ballista, I play against Michael a lot, so I know I play against this one very little. And in my mind, I knew there's a very big danger of Teamer Malcolm, so I had to understand what Teamer Malcolm would want to mull for, how Teamer Malcolm wants to play, and how Teamer Malcolm might break out of the games. And also very important to actually learn how that game would go and learn different tech. So Twice played his Hulk deck. I played Teamer Malcolm. Michael played Helios Ballista, so Charles wouldn't know. And and also Ondis played Icrom. We played exactly in this order, and then we also practiced everything and kind of communicate everything. So we learned a bunch of like different tech or different things that we knew would do really well. For example, Loyal Retainers and Goblin Bombardment was gonna own this pod, and I don't want to spoil anything, but you'll see those in the final game. Just like my Tayum game, we knew that those are the things we're looking for, and the reason why that Loyal Retainers is amazing in this pod is because if I try and lock out this pod, we know Malcolm and also Icrom with the Crom and the Malcolm will both kill me very quickly with flyers. So it's very critical that I actually have a Loyal Retainers to make those Thopters to block and chump block for me to get more time. Creating time is very important in this game because if we can just lock us out to Charles and I think the odds between us is pretty even, or I'm more favored. Letting Pongo have any opening here is very dangerous, but extremely important that he is after Charles, so the likelihood of him doing that is very difficult. The main variable here is Teamer Malcolm. Teamer Malcolm's extremely easy to win with. For example, you could go turn 1 Crypt Land Malcolm, turn 2 Glinthorn GG. That's just like very likely, and you can also have like counter backup Mental Misstep or something like that. So in the event that neither Charles and I get relevant stacks pieces, Malcolm can go off. And also specifically, we need to have either creature removal or some like super relevant stacks piece that can hurt him. So like Collector Oof is very good in this pod. But yeah, that was a special practice where I actually played specifically that pod, had other players play my list and other lists, and we just talked about it afterwards. And I also reviewed the game afterwards to see what Twice did to help kind of inform my plays and decisions. So I think that was like super important. If when the semifinal game comes out, and we should definitely watch it. It's like some of the best CDH. Not to pat myself on the back, but that's a very intense game. I really recommend you to watch it. You can also hear our politicking, so a lot to learn there. But never really done that before, and I think, you know, if you have players who can do that for you, and you really want to win a game or really want to win a certain matchup, like that's super helpful. I know it's not that common because most tournaments kind of end in one day and you have no idea the order or like the players, and you usually don't have time in between the fluid rounds or whatever and the final like breakers or like the finals. But oh no, still a very interesting way of practicing. Yes. the last thing I wanted to cover is game day. So for the semifinals final Mox Bowl day, I took also special considerations for this. I usually don't do this, but I went out for a run in the morning, just to help get some of that energy out, get the runners high, and help stay calm. I think staying calm was the most important part of the day. At that point, I knew I did as much prep I can possibly do. I don't think playing every single day into that pod really helps. I think playing a little bit, thinking a little bit, planning a little bit, all comes together. And also, like usual, I did not do anything on Friday. Friday was just another cool off day, just to mentally prepare myself to be calm on Saturday. And then Saturday I went for a run, came back, got a coffee, got a nice snack, took a shower, kind of like doing everything I needed to do, clean my desk, to make sure that I'm ready in a good mental state, in a good just prepared to play that game, because I know for semifinals and finals there's gonna be jitters and it's gonna be tense. So it's extremely important that we as competitive players do our best to kind of stay calm and not let our stress and negativity affect our gameplay. And you'll see, like, when the game goes out, that there are moments where if I didn't have a strong mental fortitude or something, like if I kind of like went with my negativity and just gave up, definitely would have lost a couple moments, especially one. So I think it's very important, and I think doing stuff like that is very critical. I ordered food but didn't really eat it because this was a rare situation where I was kind of stressed out, but just kind of taking these preparations, as I said in my other video before, to like make sure you're calm, make sure you're in a good place, just thinking clearly, and then play those games. Also, I did the thing where I wrote down everyone's interaction and I did all that stuff and kept it on the side. Never referenced it, but still helpful. And then same thing for the finals. Finals, I was not prepared for it at all, just because I didn't have time. I really focused on beating the semifinals. And it's also a little harder to plan for, knowing that there's a couple different configurations based on what the Western Conference champions were. So yeah, that game was just kind of going in, trying to stay calm again, and having a good game plan, I think, and trying to executing it. That's it. So that's my video for the week, or video based on preparing for the MLC. I think a lot of this stuff is pretty unique because you're usually not able to prepare to this degree knowing a pod, but I think that's kind of what made it fun, to be honest, for someone like me who is able to really like kind of dive into things and really study things. Like, it's kind of a blast to just be able to like kind of think about all these different potential plays, think about a strategy, and then follow that strategy through, and then have the game change based on what you draw, based on what the opponents do, and pivot and kind of leverage the synergies and the play patterns you learn from Goldfishing, and applying those learnings into a game and taking those games. I think in that sense it was very, very fun. But I think a lot of the stuff can also be applied in just other tournaments or other events as well. If you know in your LGS you play against a certain type of deck a lot, or your meta is a lot of a certain type of deck, and also you're practicing a new deck, a lot of these same things kind of apply. You want to goldfish a lot, you want to mulligan a lot, learn the hands, learn the synergies, learn the patterns, then play it, and learn generally how the deck operates, how it feels. I think very difficult to describe how a deck feels until you just put in your hand and play it. There's a lot of little things. You might realize that the mana base might be a lot greedier than you expected. You might be able to play more cards than you expected. Certain types of resources like +1/+1 counters or whatever is a lot more important than you thought. So playing to learn those little nuances is extremely important. Then you kind of like marry that with your mulligans, or marry that with your lines, then just kind of going in prepared in a good mental space, and I think you'll do very well. So that's all. Thanks. Is this gonna be a final video? I don't know. I'm probably gonna have a couple more MLC videos after this, aside from games. But just wanted to say thanks everyone for supporting me to this way, or to this point. I definitely wouldn't have done as well without everyone's support, and I'm very happy that you're watching it, and I'm also very happy that I participated, and very glad that it exists. I think MLC is very interesting and very unique, or actually MLC is very great because because not only is it such a well-run tournament, but it's one of the few tournaments that really brings like the community, cEDH community together in like a really unique way. I got to meet deck designers I don't normally talk with, and we got to like share our insights and talk about it that way. So I got to connect that way. I got to connect with players I don't often play against. I got to connect with like I don't like saying fans, but just like audience or people who watched it in a like in different ways as well. So overall, it's just like really great job, just kind of tying everyone together, and I'm very glad that to be a part of it, and that you're a part of it too. So see you next time.